Asus announced its first animated mechanical keyboard. It has a lot of the trendiest specs found in modern premium gaming keyboards today, like ultra-low input lag, but it's the programmable LEDs that really make it stand out. And no, I'm not talking about RGB keys. The ROG Strix Flare 2 Animate is a full-size mechanical keyboard aimed at gamers. It includes onboard memory, programmable keys, a detachable wrist rest, and media keys. Now, most keyboards have their media keys, if they have them, on the right side of the keyboard above the numpad, but this keyboard's programmable metal volume roller and hotkeys are on the left side. The space above the numpad is instead reserved for the keyboard's so-called Animate Matrix LED display. The Animate Matrix is comprised of 312 mini LEDs that you can program to display animations Asus preloaded, like a heart or ROGI logo. You can also upload your own images or even program it to show text. Alternatively, you can set the mini LEDs to react to sounds coming from your game or provide information that might come in handy, like how much battery life your laptop has, the date and the year, or when you get an email in Windows. It'll also keep you current with what's going on in the keyboard itself. So it'll flash a pause symbol, for example, when you hit the pause button, or the number 3 when you switch to your third onboard memory profile. For mechanical keyboard enthusiasts who like to play with different switches to see what they prefer for typing or gaming, the ROG Strix Flare 2 Animate is HOT-SWAPPABLE. So that means you can pluck the mechanical switches right out of the keyboard and insert new ones without using a soldering iron. However, Asus does recommend you turn the keyboard off before you start swapping. In general, a HOT-SWAPPABLE keyboard is helpful because it can make the keyboard last longer, since you don't have to toss it out just because a single key stopped working. Of course, as a premium gaming keyboard, the Strix Flare 2 Animate also has programmable RGB LEDs under each key. So the preset effects are actually pretty vibrant, and if you download the software, you get a lot more options, including some unique, dazzling color schemes. There's also a light diffuser on the bottom of the keyboard that you can remove and add to the wrist rest, which is actually more comfortable than the average included wrist rest, by the way. Targeting hardcore gamers, the keyboard's input lag claims to be as low as 0.125 millisecond, while most keyboards are at 1 millisecond. So in a pro-level gaming scenario, that 0.875 millisecond could be the difference between a W and an L. But don't expect to see words you're typing appear on your monitor at a wildly unprecedented rate. The Flare 2 Animate reduces input lag by having a polling rate of 8,000 Hz, while most keyboards are at 1,000 Hz. That means the keyboard reports to your PC 8,000 times per second versus the average keyboard's 1,000 times a second. The difference was hard to notice immediately, but for serious or pro-level gamers, minimizing delay everywhere possible is critical. There are a few other mechanical keyboards with 8,000 Hz polling rates, but if you want a full-size keyboard with a numpad, the Flare 2 Animate's greatest rival is the Razer Huntsman V2. Both hit 8,000 Hz and both let you adjust the polling rate to bring it down if you want, but because it's so hard to tell the difference between 8,000 Hz and 1,000 Hz with the naked eye, it's hard to say which one is speedier than the other or if one would offer you a greater gaming advantage. If you're after 8,000 Hz, your best bet is to just pick the keyboard that has other features that appeal to you most. All of the keyboard's keys are programmable, meaning you can go into Asus's software and reprogram the keys to register different inputs when pressed. You can also store all of your settings in different profiles. You get 6 profiles in total, and they store on the keyboard. So you could bring the keyboard to a different computer and load up those profiles you made without having to download software all over again. The Flare 2 Animate is one of, if not the flashiest keyboards you can get right now, if that's your thing. The LED display is a unique touch that'll certainly grab attention, and the RGB, meanwhile, is super vivid, and you can actually get some unique color schemes if you download Asus's software. But for writers and gamers, what's really important is how it feels to press those keys, and Asus didn't overlook this. So I tested the keyboard with Asus's red linear switches, and in a side-by-side comparison with cherry red switches, which are probably still the most common linear switches around today, they felt really similar, but the cherry switches felt scratchier as I pressed them. They also had more of a plastic noise to them than Asus's switches. So specs-wise, Asus's linear switch actuates when pressed down 1.8 millimeters with 45 grams of force, and they bottom out at 4 millimeters with 55 grams of force. Cherry reds, on the other hand, are similar, but you have to press them down 2 millimeters to register an input, and they bottom out with around 60 grams of force. So Asus also makes other switches. These are their ROG NX line of switches, and their gimmick is, quote, zero actuation versus reset point, end quote. That's how they, market it. Cherry red switches have 0.5 millimeters separation between their actuation point and their reset point. But you'd have to be very particular to actually notice a difference when gaming or typing. The keyboard sound profile is also pretty impressive. I didn't hear any obvious metallic pinging or plastic rattling when pressing large keys. And that's because Asus used sound dampening foam on the bottom of the case and also made its own stabilizers. It's hard to find a pre-built gaming keyboard that sounds this pure, but the Asus ROG Strix Flare 2 Animate can actually compete with custom-made mechanical keyboards when it comes to sound. I expect high-quality keycaps from a $220 keyboard. Asus at least sprung for PBT plastic over ABS plastic. Generally, good PBT keycaps are more durable and textured than ABS, which helps to resist shine and slipperiness. These keycaps in particular nail that famous PBT texture with a roughness I could see and feel, and it just misses being excessively rough. Interestingly, Asus designed the keycaps to be mid-height with a shorter stem than average. The company claims this reduces keycap wobble and makes them comfier. Now, the keycaps are comfortable, but I attribute that more to the deep dishes and pleasant texture of the keycaps than the height of them. And while there's less keycap wobble than average, I've seen less wobbly keycaps. The keycaps do help the RGB stand out more though, and they also reveal a bit more of the mechanical switches underneath for a shameless mechanical keyboard look. While the LED matrix is a unique touch, there are only a handful of preset effects that are clear enough to see. For example, the basketball effect looks like a man dribbling until he takes it to the hoop, and then the animation just looks like a random splash of light. Worse, the war effect just looks like abstract lights flashing. I wish Asus would just add more static images, or even just simpler animations. Ultimately, there are only a handful that are clear enough to use frequently, and too many of those effects were just some form of Asus branding anyway. Plus, none of the images I uploaded were usable on the display. I tried to upload some of my own images to the keyboard, like an Ars Technica logo, a heart, a simple sun, but it all just looked like blobs of light randomly appearing on the keyboard, and you couldn't tell what the image was at all. Low input lag is exciting, and it contributes to the keyboard's high price tag, but the vast majority of consumers won't actually notice a difference between this keyboard's 8000 Hz polling rate and the typical 1000 Hz rate. The ultra-high polling rate is really for serious professional level gamers with high-end gaming PCs built for as low input lag as possible. What's the point of a low lag keyboard if there are plenty of other bottlenecks elsewhere in your system? If you're looking for a keyboard with a lot of personality, this is a great option. The Animate Matrix isn't perfect, but there are definitely some usable effects here. Plus, it's great for typing thanks to quality keycaps and mechanical switches and a quiet sound profile. If you're a power user, it's great to have all these programmable keys and a lot of onboard memory. And then for serious gamers, competitive players, the ultra-low input lag is a great benefit to have. It's an expensive keyboard, but if you love its look, there are a lot of great other benefits as well. Anyway, I'm Scharon Harding, Senior Products Expert with Ars Technica. We'll see you next time.